Hi everyone, my name is Shlomi. I am delighted to be speaking with you today, even though I couldn't be there in person. The lecture you're about to see was pre-recorded to avoid potential technical difficulties and because I wasn't sure if I'd be able to participate online. I am an industrial designer who specializes in toy design, and I am also research children material culture. After years of working in the toy industry, I became increasingly interested in the theoretical aspects of toys. So I went to earn a master's degree in child culture research with a focus on material culture research from Tel Aviv University. Today I combine my work as a studio that provides design and consulting services to toy companies with teaching and theoretical research on historical and cultural aspects of toys. What I will talk about today combines these two sides of actual design practice and theoretical research. I will discuss a topic that I have researched and am still researching, which is toys created within religious societies. Especially, I will focus on the relatively new phenomenon of industrial toys made for and by the Haredi and ultra-Orthodox Jewish community in Israel. I will present the subject in the context of a project I have been involved in as an industrial designer in recent years. Therefore, the lecture will combine theoretical and research knowledge with personal familiarity with the subject and with the specific project. In 2016, I met a Haredi businessman from Jerusalem who was looking for a designer to develop a new toy for Haredi Jewish children. He showed me a collection of miniature dolls from various brands, mostly non-Haredi brands, shaped into a model of Haredi wedding. Some of the dolls has been modified to fit the dress codes for the event with additional clothes and makeshift paper, cloth, and accessories. Some object has been improvised to resemble and mimic the cultural event. According to the businessman, this type of improvised toy is a common way for Haredi children to play with dolls that were not originally designed for their needs. The children needs to play with the stories and scenery from their cultural world inspired this man to establish a new toy brand called Kids Play. Offers sets of dolls and accessories that depict everyday Haredi life. This brand is part of a contemporary trend of Haredi children toy designed from within the community, partly due to a diffusion of secular consumer culture into the Haredi community and its attempt to accommodate this diffusion with appropriate products that match the community's values. I would like to demonstrate how toys created for children in Haredi society reflect cultural ambivalence. They are created out of desire to participate in secular culture, while simultaneously rejecting some of the ideas and values associated with it. In addition, like all children's products, these toys have a variety of meanings, and the messages and the values they convey are frequently more complex than their intended meanings, and may even contradict them. I will begin with a brief overview of religious and children in general, as a lens through which toys in religious societies can be viewed. Of course, this is a vast topic that has been extensively studied. I will address it now in a very basic manner, but I believe this is an issue that cannot be overlooked when discussing toys created by and for a religious society. While children play a vital role in passing down religion and culture from one generation to the next, most religious content and ideas demand abstract thinking, which does not always suit children's cognitive abilities. Material culture and performance practice such as drawing, illustrations, dance, music, and food, and of course toys, can help bridge this gap by providing concrete representations of complex ideas. In the context of children in religious societies, material culture is therefore highly significant. This power that material culture has in transferring content to the future generation and the idea that toys are a tool for cultural construction is not limited to religious societies. This is actually the basis for the concept of educational and developmental toys even in secular culture. This power attributed to material culture in the transmission of ideas and messages make this media so important in religious societies. On the other hand, it is also the source of toys being controversial or even forbidden in different religions. Unlike illustrations, toy can reveal a very large gaps between the intentions of the creators and the actual use. While illustration is static and may depict a certain reality, a toy, such as one in the image of a holy figure or object, does not guarantee that they will be played with the same holiness that religion attributes to them. This gap is one of the main reasons for the suspicious and negative attitude that can be found in different religions toward toys. Another reason is toys' association with leisure. In religions where the believer's time should be spent studying the religion, playing with toys may be considered a waste of time. This hostility created mechanisms in various religious societies that were designed to monitor the toys and games that played by the children of believers. One of the leading strategies is playing with toys that deal with religious content, such as the sets of Noach Ark toys that were common at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century in Europe and the United States. In Victorian society in the United States, these toys represented a compromise between the desire of the children and the ambitions of the parents. While the children played with toys in the shapes of animals, peoples, and boats, from the perspective of the parents, the children were learning the biblical story. Besides the general ambivalent attitude of religious society towards play and toys, dolls, or toys with human figures, have a special complex status in certain religions, especially in Judaism and Islam. Historically, the roots of dolls belongs not only to the history of toys, but also to the history of worship and idolatry. So, the concept of a doll, or in general, a creation of a human visual image, in the eyes of religions such as Judaism and Islam, is associated with impurity and idolatry. I will expand later on how this prohibition is compatible with the creation of industrial toys and dolls in Judaism. Having provided a general overview of the many complexities surrounding children, toys, and religion, I will now discuss toys made in Haredi society in Israel and the Kids Play brand in particular, and the ambivalence of these toys as agents of communities' values. I will talk about the ways in which tensions and even religious prohibitions are sometimes resolved through external factors such as production technologies or Western style. I will discuss how toys are used by the community to preserve and transmit its culture, and how cultural characteristics are reflected in the toys and the choices made about them. I will try to emphasize how the relatively new phenomenon of toys in Haredi society brings together conservatism and tradition with Western consumer culture and its associated values. Since material culture for children is never just a simple reflection of culture, I will also discuss how toys carry with them layers of complexity and values, and how they can sometimes act against or obscure values of society. I would like to present these complexities through the following topics: the human image, religious and secular relations, gender, and boundaries. Human-shaped dolls and toys may seem to violate the Second Commandment and other prohibitions in the Book of Exodus, which, according to Haredi interpretation, specifically prohibit the creation of physical representation of humans and astronomical objects. However, the existence of Haredi doll brands suggests that this question is not relevant. Nevertheless, the fact that this is a new phenomenon provides an opportunity to examine the issue and see how centuries-old halachic issues can be reconciled with the style of Western toys and industrial production methods, and may even be resolved with their help. The discourse about the prohibition of making a human figure is mainly focused on distinguishing between the making and using the figure, when the making of it is forbidden. Regarding the nature of the image itself, it can be seen that usually the prohibition on human figure making is only relevant to a complete detailed visualization of the human figure and realistic images. It can be seen that these two issues related to the halakha are actually resolved against the production methods and the typical style of toys of which type used in Western culture today. The fact that this toy, like most plastic toys today, is made in China, and the extensive mediation involved in the creation of toys today, including multiple factors and the extensive use of machines, actually resolved the halachic issue of making the toy and making it permissible for Haredi children to play with the human figures. The doll's minimalist design and the limitation of some physical elements serve the halachic rule as well, even if not intentionally. Like many Western miniature doll brands, kids' play dolls are designed with clean lines, simple shapes, and minimal facial and textural details. This design element mark the doll as merely symbolizing a human rather than being a material representation of one. These characteristics that are taken from Western style gain a new meaning of serving the halachic rules. The doll's minimalist design also bridges the Haredi modesty rules. The design of miniature plastic dolls combines the doll's body and garments. The dolls actually do not have a body separate from their cloth. This solves the majority of modesty issues. Again, this minimalist style that stems from Western taste and technology serve the Haredi modesty code as well. Now I will refer to the design and scenery characteristics of the toy, which on one hand reflect the Haredi society that creates them, and on the other hand reflects the complexities and ambivalence I mentioned earlier, and remind the power that toys have to be an agency of many meanings and contradictions. One of the causes of the relatively new phenomenon of the creation of toys by the Haredi society is, as mentioned, a diffusion of secular consumer culture into Haredi community and its attempt to accommodate this diffusion with appropriate products that match the community's values. Observing the toys and the themes of the sets from this point of view may reveal some of the ambivalence of the toy. At the most basic level, the toy reflects Haredi society because the figures and accessories in it are inspired by the clothes, hairstyle, and accessories that characterize the society. The first step in designing the characters was studying the visual signs that would bring the characters closer to the world of the children in such a way that they could recognize the characters and identify with them. The scenery in kids' playsets acts as an agent for the community's messages and aspirations for its children. Messages like Shabbat observance, respect for parents and grandparents, the Torah's holiness, and the importance of family. In addition to Haredi values, the toy conveys messages of consumer culture and plenty. This plenty is manifested in the product in the form of leisure activities, gifts, and accessories. Religion, tradition, and family orientation do not inherently object to plenty and consumerism. However, Haredi society values of making do with little and avoiding consumer culture play a spiritual and practical role in the preservation of this society. The scenery therefore includes both Haredi values and opposition to Haredi values. Intriguingly, the toys can also be seen to reflect the community's culture, particularly in sets that depict everyday life rather than religious practice such as wedding or kiddush. For example, this set of children's room, which is not religiously themed, The set includes furniture and accessories for a boy's or girl's room, as well as a matching doll. If you look closely at the components, you can see signs that are characteristics of the community, such as the type of furniture and the quantity. For example, the set has a bed that can be converted into 2 beds, as well as 2 study chairs. This may not be noticeable at first glance, but it is actually a sign of the crowded children's rooms of large families that are common in Haredi society. In my opinion, this is a very interesting and typical example of how orthodoxy is expressed in products of this type, which goes beyond religious symbols. Another issue that is very characteristic of the Haredi society and is expressed in a complex way in the toy is the attitude towards the visibility of women. As part of sexual modesty in Haredi society, there is a strict gender partition and an exclusion of women from Haredi products like newspapers, commercials, illustrations, and the public sphere in general. Interestingly, the toys created by the Haredi society have the presence and representation of many women and girls precisely due to conservative reasons. Conservative values, such as the family structure and traditional and religious roles of men and women, creates a very balanced product in terms of gender representation, which is very unusual in the landscape of the cultural products of Haredi society. Look, for example, at the way the toy was published in one of the leading newspapers in Israel intended for the ultra-Orthodox sector. The picture shows the set of the Shabbat reception scene, but without the female figures, the mother and the daughter who appear in the actual toy. This type of exclusion is widespread in the Haredi press, but I think that in this case it is particularly interesting because it reveals the gap between the desire to exclude women from the public sphere in adult culture and the presence of women in children culture. Another issue concerning the characterization and design of the toys is related to the separatist nature of the community and the division into internal sub-communities. The Haredi community is divided into sub-communities with different characteristics. These nuances are important to members of the sub-communities, but can be sometimes difficult to notice from the outside. Whether it's a different type of hat, wearing a sock over or under the pants, tying headdresses behind or above the head, all these signs deal with defining the different sub-communities and creating boundaries. In this aspect, the separatist nature of the communities stand in front of a very dominant characteristic of Western consumer culture, and especially huge industries such as the plastic industry. And this is the desire to target as large audience as possible and the inability to take into account in a custom way a different product for each sub-community. The expression of this tension in this project is in the choice to combine the different styles. In the sets you can find different hats, different head covering, and even Torah scrolls designed according to the traditions of the different communities. Here too it is possible to notice how the meeting between the constraints of technology and the nature of Western consumer culture with the Orthodox community has given birth to something new that somewhat challenges the boundaries in these communities and perhaps even, without intending to, creates an atmosphere of connection and inclusion. The expression of the different sub-streams in Haredi society do not end with the clothes themselves. There are also differences in the traditions and therefore also in the accessories that accompany them. One of the most striking differences, for example, is in the design of the synagogue and the Torah books. When it was decided in this project to design a toy set in the image of a synagogue, the question arose as to whether the synagogue would be in the Sephardic or Ashkenazi tradition. In the various synagogues, there are Torah scrolls in different design, which required a different design for the stage. The stage is the table on which they are read. The solution for the design for the stage came actually from the toy world. The top part of the stage can be turned over, and though the angle changes according to the tradition and the relevant Torah book. The toy's moving parts, clicks, and different assemblies are designed to be both traditional and accurate, such as the opening and closing of the Torah books, the moving synagogue curtain, and even a miniature glass that can be broken and reassembled to simulate the traditional Jewish wedding glass breaking ceremony. As a toy designer, I can say that from a child's perspective, even if these features are derived from tradition, their main value is in their playfulness and sensory appeal. These are actually fun features that make the toy cool. In my opinion, the product's main strengths lie in these small details that actually makes it a toy. For me, this is also a reminder of the gap I mentioned earlier between the goals and values that stands behind these type of products and their actual use by children, which is practically uncontrollable and unexpected by the society that creates them. Coming from a secular background, I faced some criticism when I started working on ultra-Orthodox toys. People asked me why ultra-Orthodox children need their own toys, and if creating these toys would further isolate them from the world. As I showed in my presentation, the reality is much more complex. Toys are multi-layered and can carry messages that are different from their intended purpose. Haredi toys reflect the complex relationship between Haredi society and the secular and Western culture. Unlike books and games, toys are open-ended. They are designed and packaged with certain themes, but allow children to imagine and tell stories without any limitation. Children use toys and play to explore the world and explore themselves. For this, the toy must first enter the community, enter home, and appear familiar to the children. Thank you all for listening. I would like to thank ITRA and, of course, Greta Panel for the invitation. Thank you so much, Stephen Jacobs, for the panel, to my colleagues Shifra Epstein and Rachel Goren, and many thanks to Suzy Sarif for initiating and organizing this fascinating panel. Thanks all.